Hey everyone, M9SD here. I recently revisited my old enhanced debug console mod and decided it needed an update. So here I am. Now you can see much of the UI has been redone and there are some new elements that I'm going to talk about later. In addition to the UI, I also improved my previous code and added a few key features that I think some of you Arma 3 mod developers and server owners out there will enjoy. So I'm going to briefly explain and demonstrate the capabilities of the enhanced debug console mod, which will hopefully highlight the benefits of the added features. Before we get started, let's talk about compatibility. I have taken into account that many people will be using CBA alongside this mod, as that is a dependency for a lot of other mods. Now, CBA does come into conflict with my mod due to its extended console. Fortunately, I found a way to make the two compatible. You just have to install a separate mod, which is going to be titled EDC-CBA Compatibility Mod. There's a link to that in the description of this video and in the workshop. Another thing to note is that in order for the UI to be properly adjusted and resized, you will have to use the small interface size setting in the display options. So let me show you that. You go to Configure, Video, Display, Interface Size, Small. So let me quickly show you what it looks like on very small. Everything shows up, it's just a bit smaller and it's not in the right spot. You can get away with it on very small. You run into real problems when you go to normal or above. So you can see here, it's very much cut off. You can still kind of use it if you're only going to be using server global, local, and target exec. You can still change this, which is, it's not really that good though. So let me go ahead and change it back. Interface size, small. Alright, there we go. Alright, so now that that's out of the way, let's dive into the showcase. Starting with the overall design of the UI, you can see that the expression field is a bit taller. This lets you see more of the code and can sometimes help you identify problems quicker. Now in normal debug console, the default one made by Bohemia Interactive, you can press page up and page down to cycle through your expression history. This is just the previously executed scripts. You can still do that with mine, but I've also added these buttons to the left and to the right, previous and next, so that you can cycle through those same scripts. And then when you want to stop on one, you just hit select. If you look below the expression return field, we have server, global, and local. What's different about these? Absolutely nothing, except for I've added icons to every single button in the debug console. Why? Well, it just looks nicer, and it probably helps you identify the buttons a little bit quicker. Moving on from that, just below the server global and local execute is the watch field expressions. So you have watch 1, watch 2, watch 3, watch 4. In normal debug console, this lets you evaluate an expression and see what is returning continuously. Does the same thing in my version, except on the right hand side I've got these checkboxes. What do these do? Well, when you close the console, let me go ahead and define that variable before we get started with that. I should have it here. Yep. So let me define EDC test variable. And now that I have these checked, when I close the console, let me get out of camera, sorry. When I close the console, you'll see in the top right hand side, I've got the watch field expression results, and EDC test variable is going to be false, and then in 10 seconds, about 10 seconds, it's going to change to true. So blah blah blah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. EDC test variable is true. And in the other ones, I've got type of cursor target, name cursor object. So the object I'm looking at, the name is library PC number 019. That's the name of this player right here. And he's a sharpshooter. And it's also returning the array all units in the third watch field. You can see the ... at the end because it exceeds the character limit. If I didn't have a character limit, this whole hint would be way down until it comes off of the screen. So to avoid those insane lengths of the hint, I have just implemented a simple character limit. So if you don't want this hint showing up anymore, you just open the debug console again and uncheck all of these boxes here. You have to have at least one of them checked for it to show up. So now it's not evaluating any of those expressions when I'm outside of the console. This is pretty helpful because, well, you might want to monitor a variable, but you don't want to keep opening and closing the console to check what it is. So now you can just check the box and you can see when it changes. So that's pretty cool. Now if we look below the expression watch fields, you have your typical spectator, functions, animations viewer, camera, config viewer, and GUI editor. These should all work the same as they normally do. You just hit spectator again to close it. Functions viewer, you can see all the functions. Animation viewer, you can see all the animations. Camera, go into camera mode. Config viewer, view all the configs. And GUI editor, make your own GUI. So that's all pretty much the same except for these icons. Now let's get into the right side. That's where the good stuff is. We have a Zeus button. What does this do? Well, it opens the Zeus interface. But what if you don't have a Zeus logic module assigned to your player? Well, it's going to create one on its own. So let's try that now. Let me go ahead and get rid of this hint first. And let me click it now. Alright. So now I've got Zeus interface opened up. And if I want to close Zeus interface, I just hit Y as normal. So then we have the tools menu, which is currently a work in progress, and I'm going to be adding that in future updates. To the right of that, I've got Save SQF and Load SQF. This was in the previous version of Enhanced Debug Console, and it works just the same as it did then. If you want to save a script, you put it in here, and then you click Save SQF. You can give it a name, or you can leave it as the default new script 9. This number will change as you get more saved to your profile. So I'm going to go ahead and name this EDC watch field test, and then save. And then let's say I do some other stuff, and I do blah 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 blah, and then I want to get that script back, but let's pretend that it's about 10 scripts later and it's no longer in my expression history. Well, since I saved it, I can go to Load SQF, and I can scroll down. The newest one's always going to be on the bottom, and I click it. I can preview it here to make sure it's the right one. Yep, and it looks like it's the right one. And if I want, I can delete it, but let's go ahead and load it so it goes back here. Yep. So now I've got that script in the main expression field. But let's say we've got a whole bunch of scripts saved to our profile. And there's probably a good reason why there's only 10 available in the normal expression history. That's because the profile tends to get a little bit too big when you get all these huge scripts saved to it. So you can go ahead and go here and delete it. So that freed up some of the space. Just above that, I've added some performance metrics. We have server uptime, which doesn't actually show the amount of time that the server's been running. It will actually show the amount of time that the mission has been running. Above that, I have Zeus count, player count, AI count, object count, client FPS, which is your own FPS, mean FPS, which is the average FPS of all the clients on the server, and above that, server FPS. Pretty self-explanatory. On the right side, you can click refresh to refresh all of these. Alright, so now let's get into target execute. Have you ever wanted to easily run code on objects similar to how you would in the ident editor with the init field? Well, now you can. So let's say you want to run code on a specific player's client. Just select them from the list of players and then put your code here. For this example, I'm going to do player set damage 1. I have them selected, and then I go down here, make sure I have target exec type selected unit, and I click target execute. Library PC number 019 was killed, and apparently I broke his neck. Anyways, so that shows you can execute code on a specific player's client. What if you want to do it on AI? Well, go to this drop down at the bottom of the target list and click list AI. Now you can see that all the AI shows up in this list, including agents. And they will be color coded to show what team they're on. So let's go ahead and run the same code on some AI. Let's just use this squad leader here as an example. I should be able to find him on blue 4. Yep, he was the first one. And you'll notice that when I highlight him in the list box, he's also highlighted in game with that box that's around him. This will let you know which AI you have selected so you don't accidentally run code on the wrong one. Alright, so player's not going to work if we're running this on AI. That's actually going to kill me since I own the actual AI. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to exactly what you would in the editor. THIS. Now you can use the global variable this. That's going to work perfectly fine. Or you can type underscore this. That will also work because I've passed the object variable as a parameter into the code that you're running. So let's try it with both. Let's do this first. Selected unit, target execute. You can see he just died. And then let's select the next guy on the left side there. And let's use underscore this. And you can see that works as well. Alright, moving on, we have different target exec types. You can do it for the object you're looking at with cursor object or cursor target, which is a little bit different from cursor object, but it's pretty much the same thing, whatever you're looking at. So let me demonstrate that with this. Boom, he's dead. And you can see that I didn't have him selected in the target list, I just used cursor object. So if you don't have selected unit selected, it's not going to use what you have selected in the target list. Moving on from those, there's curator selected. What the heck is that? Well, curator is another word for Zeus. It's just synonymous terminology. So it's going to run the code for each object that you have selected in the Zeus interface. So I'm going to use these vehicles right here as an example. I'm going to drag, select them all, then I'm going to hit escape, make sure I have curator selected, and then I'm going to load my code. I'm just going to do allow damage false for this example, something simple, and then I'm going to hit target execute. Now, these three vehicles should be invincible. Let's go ahead and test that. Yep, Quillen's invincible. Hatchback's invincible. And the Zamac fuel is invincible. So let me go ahead and turn their invincibility off, select them, open the debug console, change this to true, target execute, close the console, close Zeus, and now they should all blow up. So that works pretty well. Anyways, that about sums it up for this showcase. The workshop link is in the description. Be sure to give it a thumbs up and favorite it if you do check it out. But other than that, have a nice day, and I will see you in the next one.